Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. I have with me today Brandon. Brandon is a father in Colorado who is suffering from parental alienation. He has not seen his children for almost 3 years. He has 2 special needs boys, and he is fighting a system that is corrupt, and the mother of the children has alienated him intentionally. So Brandon, thank you for joining the show. And thanks for being open to share your story with us. Let's get started a little bit about your 10-year marriage. So you're married, and let's talk a little bit about what that household looked like with your ex-wife.
Initially, very normal, very much a team initially. As things progressed, the need for things and status seemed to take hold within my ex-wife, and the burden for providing all of that fell to me as it was apparently the fatherly duty, and it got exponentially worse as things went on.
So you're in the marriage, and you had your first child. How was that experience? Was there any red flags? I know that as a mom, sometimes first-time mom, you're more protective. Tell us a little bit about that.
With regard to that, she had a son from a previous relationship who was about 7 years old at the time. Indicators as far as her mom abilities, as it were, didn't raise any red flags to me. She made sure that he was disciplined. She made sure he was well taken care of, as far as food, medication, medical attention, things like that. It appeared that the biological father was not in the situation willingly, which I've come to second guess in hindsight. But after Aiden, my first, was born, he was diagnosed with schizencephaly, which is a neurological disorder that places him on the autism spectrum. She was very reluctant to seek any sort of medical attention for him. He was very late to begin to do the army crawl, as it were. And as we were changing his diapers and bathing him and all that, we noticed that he had a lot of tension on one leg versus the other. It took a lot of arguments for me to get her to actually take him to a specialist and say, hey, I think there's something wrong here. As that progressed, it became a situation where that very much did a 180. It's to the point now where they get a hangnail and we have to go to the emergency room. Everything is an emergency. Everything is, we have to get it done now. They're dying. She has them on, last count, is on nearly 20 different medications. And his younger brother Corbin is on 17, I believe. And oddly enough, she's made it so that I can't have any access to any of their medical records, which again is very suspicious to me, that if everything is on the up and up, there should be no reason that it shouldn't be shared. So to answer your question poignantly, no, there wasn't any initial indicators that I should expect any sort of situation like this.
So the marriage you mentioned earlier in our chat was riddled with financial and emotional abuse. Give us some examples of that.
Well, initially, with any relationship, finances become combined. When that occurred, it was insistent upon we have to have one bank account, which for ease of use purposes, I was agreeable to. Until the point that account was actually established, and then I was informed that I was not on that account, that I was going to be given a debit card that she could control and let me know what I could spend and when I could spend it, to the point of having to call and ask permission to buy a soda while I'm at work or something like that. More often than not, a vehicle is sipping fumes getting back and forth to work, and I'm told, well, we don't have the money to put gas in the vehicle. But then I come home and there's a trash can full of fast food wrappers with the story of, oh, well, my friend came over and I bought us lunch. So to me, that was very abusive with I'm stressed on whether or not I can actually go and make the money to provide for our family, but we're buying people lunch. It just doesn't jive. The math doesn't math. And then as far as the emotional abuse goes, it was a lot of, well, you're always angry, you're listless. There was a lot of, you work too much, but then we don't have money. So how am I supposed to work enough to give us money, but then I'm also in trouble for being an absentee father and husband? There's only a finite amount of time in a day, and you can't have one with the other. They're mutually exclusive. So that became a contention point of, well, you're detached, you're never at the kids' events or school or whatever. And then my contention there was, if we have to have a new car every year, and we have to have the new house, and we have to have the subscription to everything under the sun, then I have to work to provide that. Or transversely, she could provide that with going to work herself. However, she chose to play the "I'm the special needs mom" card, and to that point, I believe there was abuse to my children within that. As Colorado has a provision for parents of special needs children where they can be paid by the state to be a caregiver. With that, she was required to do certain therapies with my son Aiden, as far as physical therapy, occupational therapy, AFO, and charting for all of that. More often than not, that would not get done, as I would find out at work. I would have a daily fight with Aiden on putting on his AFO to go to school because he didn't like it, and mom never made him wear it. Yet she had no problem charting all of these things that she was quote unquote doing so that she got a paycheck for it. And again, that paycheck went into an account with only her name on it. That abuse continued to her mother lived with us rent free in a house that I had to provide. There was nothing done around the house. I'm not a misogynistic man. I don't expect a woman to care for the house. My expectation was, if I'm at work 13, 14, 15 hours a day, it would be nice to be able to come home and have a glass of water without having to wash a glass, and maybe wash my hands without having a sink full of dishes. It was never a demand. It was never a, "you're a woman, you do this." It was a, "hey, this is a common courtesy. I worked really hard today. My home needs to be my sanctuary," and that's part of it. That turned into, well, I'm demanding and I'm misogynistic and I expect things of her. And that wasn't the case at all. It was literally a, "hey, I just need some peace, and I need my wife to be my solid place," which is what my understanding was what a relationship was supposed to be. With that, also, she is very much the Disneyland mom. Everything is good, everything is fun. So that turned into, if anything happened with either of the boys that required discipline, it was a "wait till your dad gets home" scenario. Very Beaver Cleaver. I had to be the disciplinarian, I had to be the enforcer, which in turn began an alienation between me and my sons, whereas I was known as the one who was angry and yelling all the time, because I was either at work or I was disciplining. Those were my two allowed duties. And it only got worse throughout the marriage, until finally I found myself having suicidal thoughts and decided that I wasn't going to put up with the abuse anymore, and left the marriage.
So you leave the marriage, and prior to you leaving the marriage, other than you being the breadwinner and the disciplinarian, how was the relationship with the boys at that point? And how old were they when you left?
They were 10 and 11 when I left. The relationship with the boys was very black and white. When mom was around, it was very much, there are rules and dad's going to enforce them. My youngest son, Corbin, is very much into nature, hiking, Western history, the gold mining era, all that. Him and I shared a lot of really great times out with my friends, embarking in hobbies, radio control cars, going and driving on trails in the mountains in our truck, feeding chipmunks at a place called St. Elmo. So it was very 180 contrast. When mom was there, I was the disciplinarian. I had to follow mom's rules. When mom wasn't there, I was allowed to be the dad that I am, where I could take him out and teach him, and we can learn together. And tactile learning, where we can actually touch and see and smell and experience what it is we're learning, versus just looking at a book and going, "oh, well, this is a thing that might be real." I have pictures and videos. Sorry, I have pictures and videos of me and my sons doing these things. That's all I have left, and that's the dad that I am, not the man that she made me be. And that's part of the pain of this alienation.
So it sounded like outside of mom's presence, you and the boys had a good relationship. And
We absolutely did, and my friends, my coworker works with me, and him and I still lament days where we all had gone out and done things, going to car races and doing all the things that that dads and sons do. These boys were my world, and my world's been taken from me, and I'm having to pay somebody to abuse them, and that's just not okay.
So let's talk about, and it's not okay. You're right, Brandon. It's absolutely not okay. So let's talk about you leave. How did that transition to you spending time with the boys through where you are today with Alienation? Walk us through how that transpired.
So when I left, I mistakenly thought that her intentions were still to make sure that the boys were happy, healthy, and safe. That we had. I made the mistake of assuming we had a common goal of our boys being the paramount of what needs to be done. So I left the home because I didn't want my sons to have to change schools and go through all of that turmoil. My intent was to cause as little damage with my removal as possible. I had to save my own life without destroying theirs, if that makes sense. So I left the home, and with that, her and I made an agreement that I would sign a quitclaim deed on the home. She would retain all of my equity during the refinance for the sole purpose of paying off mutual debts, with the agreement that this divorce would be as painless as we possibly can make it. Only to find out that my equity was spent on 2 new cars and 3 vacations, and then I get served with papers from an attorney saying that I'm now going to face this long litigation process, and that she was left high and dry, and I literally left with my truck, my clothes, and a couple of pots and pans. I left in the middle of the night because I had to. I was dying. I was not physically dying, but my soul and my spirit and my ability to be a good dad were on their. So she wasn't left high and dry. She was left everything. She had the new car she had to have. She had the big fancy house she had to have. She was left all of the equity in the home, which was roughly $60,000. I gave her 60 grand, and then was told that I'm this deadbeat who didn't provide for my family. Shortly thereafter, I was a driver for UPS at the time. I was making good money. I suffered a back injury, which took me out of that job for 6 weeks, for lack of spending time on unnecessary um, points. I ended up losing that job, out of control of my own. At that point, because I wasn't willing to pay her $525 a week, she decided that I wasn't worthy of seeing my children. I did have a moment where I cracked under that pressure, and I did take some pills, and my intent was that I wanted to sleep. I hadn't slept in 3 weeks. I had lost my job. I was being evicted. Life was falling apart, and I wasn't allowed to see my kids in the process. Once she found out about that, she immediately came to my home, demanded the keys to quote unquote her truck, as we were still both on the title at the time. My firm belief is that the reason she rushed over was because she wanted to be the one to find out that I had succeeded in killing myself. That's my firm belief, and I believe that she still has a vendetta that she didn't get to see that I succeeded. From that point, she has since taken that to court, saying that I have a history of this, that this has been a problem. I have never had any history with addiction to alcohol or any other substance. The only time I've ever been in a police car was at like a fair event where it's a, hey, get in and turn the lights on fun. My interaction with police up until that point was I was actually really good friends with a neighbor who was a police officer. So that this sudden he has this history was at best a fabrication. Yet the judge took it as fact. Never once required any sort of proof or tangible evidence, never once looked at me and said, hey, what's your take? Was just like, okay, yeah, he's suicidal and violent, and set it up in our orders that I was not allowed to have contact with my children until I had a mental health evaluation performed, at which point, if treatment was recommended, that I was to have supervised visitation, and then once I was discharged, I was to have weekend visitation. So I went and did that. I spent almost $6,000 on 7 sessions to make sure that I did my due diligence. I didn't want it to look like I found Joe Schmo on the internet and he said I'm cool. I wanted this to be legit. So I went and did that and took it back to the court, and then the court said, oh, well, this person doesn't have the credentials that we require. To which my question was, well, if there were credentials that were required, why were those not outlined in the orders? And the judge basically said, well, the orders are clear. You need to do this again. Fine, I don't want to fight. I want to be a dad. So I go and do this again. have another 9 sessions with another provider who I verified has the credentials, have spent yet another couple $1,000s, have gone another 6 months without seeing my children, and I am still waiting for the court to approve, disprove, whatever they want on that. In the meantime, I call my sons 3 times a day. I call them on the way to work, I call them on the way home from work, and I try to call them around the 7:45, 8 o'clock mark for a good night call. Generally, I get to talk to them maybe twice a month. With that, it was in our orders that she was to maintain a landline that I could use to call. That has gone by the wayside very quickly. When I left, both boys had their own cell phones. We're now down to one cell phone. According to her, I have information otherwise that the other boy has a cell phone, but I'm not allowed to have the number. Also, with all of this, there was another incident where she had allowed visitation, because apparently she's in control of all of this, near Christmas. And she decided that my visitation time was over and wanted to come pick my son up. However, we were busy working horses and doing things as a father and son. And I didn't respond to her because I was focused on my son. She then proceeded to drive to my home and attack me at my home, and then went and filed a restraining order against me, citing both the suicide incident and this incident. And once again, the court never required anything, not even a question of, hey, this sounds a little weird, not a, hey, let's talk to this guy. It was a, here's this restraining order. She listed herself and both my sons in the restraining order, saying that she feared for her life. To that point, at both of these incidences, she was asked to leave nearly 20 times and refused to do so, so she's trespassing, refusing to leave, but is in fear for her life from me. The first of which, because it was a suicide attempt, there were EMTs. They asked her to leave nearly 30 times. She refused. The only time she finally left was when the local police department told her she could be charged with harassment and trespassing if she didn't leave. So logic would state that somebody who's in fear for their life would not refuse to leave, especially when being told by the person whom apparently she's afraid of, leave me alone, leave my place of residence, you are not welcome here. So I was given the option by that court to do one of two things. I could either litigate, and I would have to prove that I didn't attack her at my home, or I could accept a temporary restraining order for a year, and if there were no violations, it would then be expunged. I chose the latter, given that the litigation time would prevent any contact at all with my children. I would not be allowed to call. I would not be allowed to text. If I happened to be somewhere where they would be, I would have had to leave. I felt it in the best interest of my children to at least be able to maintain phone contact versus entering the court conundrum of waiting indefinitely for whatever to happen. Over the course of that year, I did not respond to anything. We were required to use the Talking Parents app. She would send instigatory messages of, well, you need to respond. I need money for this. Those types of things. I never once responded. I would read them to make the paper trail of, yes, I understand that I'm required to use this app. Yes, I read the messages. No, I did not respond in any manner. Even to the point of she would try to interject when I would be able to talk to my children on the phone. That it would be hey, how's school going? Are you doing okay? And she's in the background going, when am I going to get my damn child support? Which is not appropriate at all. There was even an instance where I was FaceTiming with one of my sons while they still had phones that were able to do that, and I saw a gentleman walk behind my son. And as any good father would do, I said, oh, who's there with you? And the response I got from the man, I use very loosely, was, and I quote, your fucking replacement. And he says this in front of my son, and then I hear him and my ex-wife laughing, which I'm no psychologist, but I can't imagine that's in the best interest of any child at all to hear that type of language, especially directed at their father, and have their mother not say, hey, that wasn't appropriate. So this is kind of the general gist of what I go through every day with my ex-wife, to the point now where my children, I get the automated phone calls when they're absent from school, both of them. And this began to concern me severely, as it was 2 to 3 times a week. So I called the schools and was like, look, I'm legally bound from doing anything about this, but I would like to offer my services where I legally can. Come to find out that the schools have been trying to get a hold of the mother for months. They have gone to the point of sending CPS agents out to the house where, as I mentioned before, her mother lives. Her mother has no car and she's physically impaired. So she can't drive. She can't leave. She lives at the home, yet nobody ever answers the door. To that point of the mother, these children are often left in the care of this woman who cannot traverse a couple of stairs, let alone a flight. And these are both boys with seizure-prone issues that are left in the care of this woman on a 3-story home. So if one of these boys were to have a seizure on the second floor, the likelihood is this woman wouldn't even know for hours, and even if she did, she wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Yet I'm dangerous. The court looks at me and says, this man is a threat to these children. It just doesn't jive. There's the fact that the type of people who will say these things and the fact that they're left in the care of this woman who can't care for them. It's not a dig on her. It's just a physical fact. She can't do the job. But then I'm prohibited from even talking to my children unless mom decides that it's okay. This truancy situation has progressed, and actually just before contacting you on this podcast, I received an email from the school saying that they wanted to have a meeting regarding the truancy for one of the children. I called the school and expressed, yes, I would absolutely like to be a part of this meeting. However, I do have concerns that given previous circumstances, I would prefer that it be a meeting one-on-one between me and the school and not have the mother present, as she's demonstrated she's very willing to perjure herself to gain what she wants, only to find out that they've already spoken with her and she insists that any meetings that I have, she is legally allowed to be present for. Which, in my opinion, is an attempt to control the narrative. It's so that if any truth comes out, she can immediately discount. And that's generally the MO I get, is there's no communication unless she wants money. If I so much as sneeze in the wrong direction, I'm slapped with court orders to go back for contempt. I pay what I can when I can, as best I can. But at this point, they have me paying her nearly $1,500 a month in child support, even though I only make about $2,200 total in a month. Basically, they have me, the way this court is set up is I should not be able to drive to and from work, I should not be able to live, and I should not be able to eat as long as mom gets the money. There are also instances where she has disregarded medical advice. Corbin, my youngest, had a brain bleed at birth, which causes apneic episodes, which puts him at a very, very high risk for seizure and or death from seizure. His neurologist has stated throughout the entirety of this that he is not to play contact sports, football, rugby, hockey, all of that. However, during the time of the restraining order, she sends me a message and says, I need you to send me $1,600 because I'm putting Corbin in hockey. And he hasn't had a seizure in months, so I think it'll be okay. And me as a father, I'm going, well, I can't respond to this woman. And I know for a fact that one good shot to the head, it could be lights out for good. But I'm supposed to send this woman $1,600 to put my son in harm's way because she wants to be cool mom. Also, with regard to the hockey, there are over 17 instances that I have found so far where Corbin was far too sick to go to school, but was able to go to hockey in the exact same day within an hour and a half. So that, again, that says to me that this is not a mom that's protecting her children from the big bad dad who's going to hurt them. This is a spiteful, non-congenial, disgusting woman who is using a dad who wants to be a dad to, frankly, she's being subsidized to abuse these children and myself. And, I'm big, I can take it, but these kids do not deserve to have their dad ripped from their lives, and they do not deserve to have a mother who tells them that their dad is a deadbeat and is evil, and it's just all wrong, and this court system does not care. Literally, we have gone into discussions about child support, and I've said, I can't even talk to my kids on the phone. And this is against the orders, and they go, well, you're welcome to file contempt. Not, hey, this is a problem, let's fix it. But, oh no, pay us some more money, take some more time out of your life, and right now I'm facing contempt charges because I can't keep up with child support. I still pay her at least $800 a month of the $1,500, but now I'm looking at jail time for not being able to keep up with finances that they have placed on me that are above my income level.
And you don't get to see your children.
And I rarely get to talk to them. And I don't understand how this system works where we go, okay, well, you can't afford to pay, so we're going to make you take time off of work to waste time at court, and then we're going to put you in jail where you can't work so that you can't make money to pay the money that you can't pay. I'm no English major, but if you ask me what entrapment sounds like, that sure sounds pretty much what entrapment sounds like. And again, I still don't have any substance abuse issues. I still don't have any violence issues. I've been in a stable relationship for almost 2 years now with a woman who has a 12-year-old son. And even that's not taken into account, that I don't have any issues with another child. Why would I have issues with mine? And to boot, All three of the children, her son from the previous relationship and both of mine, she has CPS investigations that have been opened on her for all three of these children that I wasn't involved with, yet she's the more fit parent. This is insane.
So what are the outcomes of those cases? And have you gotten any results on any of those where your children are involved?
So the first was with her son from a previous relationship where a caregiver was acting inappropriately in a sexual manner with the children. It was ordered that the children be put into therapy for that, which is, as I understand, a normal course. She didn't follow through with that. That was too much to ask. Nothing was ever followed up. Nobody ever did anything. Luckily, that child, who's now 22, is okay, healthy, he's thriving, he's doing good in his life, and him and I are still in contact, and we have a good relationship. The second one was she again chose the caregiver, who was her aunt at the time, whom she allowed to move into the home, displacing the boys out of their room. So these boys lost their area, which is important for children, as we all know, so that this woman could live with us. And she was leaving open pill bottles on low-lying tables, and my children got into them. And instead of the normal human course of let's make sure the children didn't take these pills, she proceeded to smack my son with a cane. And that wasn't an issue, apparently. Nothing ever came of that. She went, oh no, it was an accident. And CPS went, okay, fine. Never, why are there open pill bottles? Why is this woman who is, again, another woman who can't traverse a flight of stairs is taking care of two special needs children on a multi-level home? Never any care with that. And then the third one was with Corbin, whom mom was so focused on her cell phone that she dropped my son and fractured his skull. And again, I was home at the time. She was holding him, but we're so worried about our phone and making sure that we're getting our likes or whatever it is, that we drop our infant son on his head and fracture his skull. And again, that was deemed to be an accident. And I'm sorry, but I disagree vehemently that that is not an accident. If you are so worried about your children that you're going to keep them from their father, then you don't drop them, and you don't let them not go to school, and you don't let them be in the care of people who can't take care of them, and you don't let them be in contact with people who refer to themselves as quote unquote their father's fucking replacement. I also have it on good authority that she frequently has parties at the home. My son called me one day and complained that he couldn't play outside because there was glass all over the back patio. And again, I take this to the court, and they go, well, unless you have proof. And I'm floored at the fact that I can't say, hey, I have concerns for my children's well-being, and somebody who is a mandatory reporter doesn't stand up and go, okay, let's make sure. But she goes, I'm afraid of him because I attacked him at his home, and now I'm a criminal. I'm a deadbeat. I'm not allowed to see my kids. I am all of the bad things that you could possibly think of, all because she said so. And the fact of the matter is my kids suffer for it. They're the ones that pay for it ultimately. This court system does not care. As long as the money flows, they do not care.
I agree that it's all about the finances for the court system. So when you talk with your boys, how is their relationship with you when you speak with them?
There's versions to that. Given that both boys are special needs, my son Aiden threatens self-harm often. So more often than not, when I get to talk to him, it's because he's in crisis and he's saying, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to kill everybody else. And I do the best I can to talk him down and make sure he's okay from a distance, as that's all I'm legally allowed to do. There was an instance where that had happened. I knew he was in the care of his grandmother, whom can't take care of him. And I asked him, where are you? He said, I'm upstairs. And I said, is your mom home? He says, no. I said, where's your grandma? And he said, I don't know. So I called 911 and said, my son is threatening self-harm. I believe there's an adult there, but I can't verify it. Can you please send a car to make sure my son does not hurt himself? As he is on the autism spectrum. He does have a propensity to overreact to things very quickly, and he does so in a physical manner. Subsequently, to have my ex-wife then run back to the court and say that I'm harassing her by calling the police unnecessarily. And my intent, I even made it clear to the 911 operator that my intent was not to harass. My intent was to ensure the safety of my child. And I presented all that to the court and said, look, this is not the case. You have the transcript of the 911 call right here. And even still, I was told that it wasn't appropriate for me to call the police. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to find out my son has killed himself because the police don't want to deal with it or the court doesn't want to handle it. I frankly, these people are paid to do this. I don't care what they want to do or don't want to do. Outside of those situations, it's to the point now where I don't know my children. I haven't had the opportunity to know my children. My son went through an entire hockey season and I never once got to see him play or support him or congratulate him and hold him and say, hey, I'm really proud of you. You did a really great job. I wasn't legally allowed to. When I do get to talk to them, it's filled with interjections from their mother that I'll say, how was school? Do you have anything coming up? And she'll go, you can check the calendar. And I'm not even allowed to say, excuse me, I'm speaking with my children, not you, because that would be lambasting their mother in front of them, and that would land me in court. So I can't even have a conversation with my children. It's 3 to 5 minutes at best, generally, unless it's a crisis, in which case it's been hours that I've been on the phone with him trying to remind him that he is loved and that somebody cares, because his mom doesn't. She's made it very clear. One of the times recently that he called me in crisis was in the morning because he didn't want to go to school. And I hear her say in the background, well, I'm not going to jail because your stupid ass doesn't want to go to school. And again, I can't do anything. I can't say anything to her. I can't interject. All I can say is, I'm here for you. I'm here to help as best I can. You do need to go to school. And it's insane. It's just, this whole situation has been insane. I can't afford a lawyer. Apparently that's a crime as well. That going into court without representation is a free ticket to basically railroad a father. Every attorney that I do call, it's going to be $7,000 to $10,000 for them to even look at the case. And again, I fall back to this. If these are people that are really concerned about children and their well-being, their actions don't support that. I've even talked to them and said, look, I'm willing to do a payment plan. Let's figure something out. I need help. And all of them basically tell me, unless I've got 10 grand to put in their pocket, pound sand, it's not worth it. And I've also heard from several other people in this situation similar to mine that even when they do have a lawyer, it's a long shot at best that you're even going to be heard, let alone taken seriously. So I don't have suicidal tendencies anymore. I had that one lapse. That moment in time is not a reflection of me as a man. That's a reflection of a moment in time and nothing more. But I have to say that I don't really see any light at the end of this tunnel. I have resigned myself to the fact that it's probably going to be 8 to 10 years before I can tell my children what the truth is, and all I can do is hope that at that point they want to hear the truth and that they will see it and know that I was there and I did try, and that their mother loved herself and her tantrum much more than she loved them.
Brandon, this was a very heartbreaking story, and I thank you for sharing. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
All I can say is, when it's as dark as it can be, you still have to fight. You have to. If you're alone and you're in the dark, your kids are alone in the dark with you, and you have to continue. Men and women alike. I know it's not only men that get alienated, but the worst thing you can do is give up. Your kids will know it. One day they will know that you gave up. And make a folder of write them letters. Keep the birthday cards that you're not allowed to send. Take pictures of adventures that you go on that you wish they would have been there for, so that when they have that opportunity to ask, you have the opportunity to tell them, look, I was here, and God damn, I wish you were there with me. Because that's what the children deserve. This is not about money. This is not about the court. This is not about powerful judges. This is not about disgusting parents. This is about doing what's right for the kids. And if the court's not going to do it, we have to. Period.
Thank you. Brandon, thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real, and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.